To talk about the escalating situation in West Asia, I'm joined by Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh, former senior diplomat. He's been a diplomat to various countries, notably to Israel. Thank you, Ambassador Singh, for being on the show. Seeing the conflict, the way it's escalating today in strikes, the U.S. Central Command admitted that 3 of its soldiers were killed in Iran strikes, 5 injured. They were able to hit Israel, at least 9 people dead there, multiple cities in Gulf attacked, Kuwait, I think 2 killed, 3 in UAE. Clearly, it is on an escalatory ladder. Where do you see this going?
So many in the US itself have commented that this is a war of choice that US and Israel have embarked on. And as you recall, last year also, there were 2 rounds of exchanges between Iran and Israel. And in the second round, targeting more specifically Iran's nuclear program, US have also joined and caused significant damage to the nuclear program. Now, in this instance, I think the sense was that in the earlier attacks, Israel had severely degraded the air defense systems of Iran. And with the protests that had taken place in Iran some weeks ago, there was a sense that perhaps the Iranian government was weak. And with another attack from the US and Israel, there could be a chance for regime change. And this is one of the things that I've articulated as a specific objective. From the US point of view, the present structure in Iran came into power in February 1979. And so, 47 years ago. And since then, they've found them an adversarial government. Now, Iran also refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist. Now, many of the other Arab countries have step by step worked out some kind of a relationship with Israel. You'd recall that in 2020, for example, through the Abraham Accords, 5 Arab countries, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Morocco, and Sudan, had established diplomatic relations with Israel. But Iran had a firm line. They believed that in terms of their philosophy, the kind of identity that the Israeli state had was something that they couldn't accept. So from Israel's point of view, Iran was an existential threat, as they said. So I think they felt that perhaps here was an opportunity to work for regime change. Now, whether that will work is questionable. Because if you remember in 2003, the US did attempt regime change in Iraq, and it led to more than a decade of violent conflict. In 2011, US and Europe tried regime change in Libya, removing Colonel Gaddafi, and Libya is still destabilized. In Afghanistan, many scholars have commented that it took the United States 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. So, regime change from outside, going against whatever may be organic developments in a society internally, does not always work.
But Ambassador Singh, I agree with that. The objective of the operation clearly looks like regime change, though on the first day it looked that possibly they could want to weaken Iran and then renegotiate with a weakened Iran. But after the killing of Khamenei, do you think this will continue? Because if they want to look at a regime change, today they've brought in another cleric, Ayatollah Arafi, and now the interim or the transition leadership council is there. I think Pezeshkian said that the supreme leader will be elected in a day or 2. So if, there is a whole institutional system that exists in Iran, is it that easy to do effective regime change? One. Second, what according to you is going to be the strategy of the Americans and the Israelis? Will they go all out for a regime change, or will they stop at what they've done?
So as you rightly pointed out, Iran has institutional structures. There's an assembly of experts that elects the supreme leader, and that body is in existence. They have a structure for setting up an interim council if the supreme leader is not there. So that process is on. The Revolutionary Guard Corps has its own institutional structure. And there's a mechanism through which they elect the parliament, the Guardian Council, the president. So all that is there. Now, suddenly, the fact that large number of senior leaders have been killed would be a shock to the Iranian society and establishment. And they'll have to, and there could be pulls and pressures within the power structure. Competing power structure would come into play. So we have to see how all that plays out. Some may be more hardline towards the US. Some may want more accommodation towards the US. It is difficult at this stage to see how the power alignment will work. So that's one thing. The second thing is, with the kind of killings that have happened and the supreme leader, his death has been described now as a martyrdom. Given that the Iranian society, one would expect, would consolidate to some extent with the regime. There are a large number of people there who are alienated from the regime. But there are also a significant percentage of the population in Iran that is supportive of the regime and believes in the religious and other philosophies that the regime has been advocating. And so there would be that level of consolidation. So I would suspect, despite whatever pain is brought to bear on them, the leadership and society, they will not want to capitulate. Now, on the other hand, Israel, seeing an existential threat to itself, would want to continue for as long as it can, given one will have to see what are its stockpile of resources to continue with this kind of attack. But in the US, if an attack goes on for a prolonged length of time, there would be blowback against the president. Because as it is, President Trump, during his campaign, said that he would end forever wars. And he had also said that he would not advocate a policy of regime change.
Yeah.
Now, what he is doing now is opposed to what he had articulated during his campaign.
Also, his popularity is down and he faces a midterm election.
And of course, but if he succeeds in this conflict, it may help him in the election.
Oh, you're saying
but
it's a gamble that he's taken?
But if he doesn't succeed, it will go against what he has said. In fact, on the social media, you're seeing they have revived a 2-year-old interview of Vice President Vance, where he said it would not be in US interest to go into war with Iran. And so that's what they had advocated. And part of the MAGA base of President Trump has been opposed to any war effort. So I think if it prolongs, there would be a pressure on the president to bring the conflict to an end. But of course, there has also been devastation in West Asia. Iran has retaliated, starting with US bases located in the region, to other parts in those countries. And so there's been, you referred to some of the killings, there's been damage to civilian property, there's been damage to infrastructure. So the equation between Iran and other countries in the Gulf will also be strained at this point of time. There could be dimensions of, religious conflicts. So there are many dimensions coming into play.
In fact, I wanted to ask you on that, of the religious context. How would the Sunni world react? Right now, the statements coming out of Qatar, out of Oman, out of other countries, even the Saudis, is that we will not take it lying down and we will not allow our sovereignty to be violated. But they don't seem to be too keen to jump into this war. In fact, I think, was it Qatar who said that this is not your war, don't get to the Americans, this is not your war, stay out of it. Or was it Oman?
No, I think that was Oman.
That was Oman. Oman said, stay out of it, don't get sucked into it.
We saw the Oman foreign minister who was involved in mediation between US and Iran, had done an interview before the attacks began.
Okay.
And he said that a deal was within reach.
Right.
And that Iran had made concessions more than it had done before. And once the conflict started, he said he was very disappointed that the
So two questions there.
What
Would the Sunni world jump into this war? What would be their reaction? Would they?
No, I don't think they're particularly interested, the other countries in the Gulf, to prolong the war effort. But if they feel, any country that feels that its sovereignty has been challenged is bound to react, to say that they will protect their sovereignty.
By statements.
And they have to make that. But from Iran's perspective, I guess their argument would be that US bases from your territories are attacking us and that we have a legitimate right. So it's a different narrative, and I think each narrative has a certain validity.
Okay. And the other question, that it's a little background question. If, as the Omanese foreign minister said, there were concessions that Iran was willing to make, according to publicly available things, it was going well. then suddenly what dawned upon President Trump and Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, that they decided to go in for this. And obviously this isn't take a spur of the moment decision. This would have been planned weeks in advance.
So there are two things there, Amritpal. One, even from the statement of the Omani foreign minister, you can make out that what he has indicated that there was progress on the nuclear question. And on the question of enriched uranium, commitment not to make nuclear weapons, Iran was willing to make far more, further commitments than it had done ever before. That it would not keep any stockpiles of enriched uranium. They would make a commitment never to have nuclear weapons. So
allow IAEA inspections.
And IAEA inspections, but Iran was not prepared at this stage to enter into discussions on ballistic missiles. And the Israeli and US argument has been that through their ballistic missiles, they are in a position to reach Israeli territory and potentially US territory. And they needed to also bring that into play in the negotiation so that Iran's capacity is curtailed. Now, at this stage, obviously, Iran was not prepared to enter into that because they may have felt that that would completely expose them to Israeli attacks because they don't have the kind of air capacities that, for example, Israel has. So that's one argument that they were not prepared to discuss about ballistic missiles. But more than that, if looking at the long term, US and Israel felt that this was the moment when Iran was weak, and through their effort they could push things towards a major change in the governance structure. But they may have taken that call.
Okay.
But whether it will work or not, now only time will tell. And based on past experience, one would feel that the objectives they have set for themselves may be difficult to attain.
Okay. So, Ambassador Singh, once again, what's your sense? Will this prolong? Will this play out for days, weeks, months? Or will it, stop and there'll be some return to the negotiating table? Though today at a mosque in Coms, they raised the red flag, the Iranians, which is basically saying we'll take revenge.
So I would watch how politics in the US plays out. Because if the politics in the US plays in the direction of not prolonging the effort, then I think President Trump will want to find a way out towards starting some kind of negotiation again. So let's watch that. But again, the other thing you should keep in mind that even Russia and China, who have a very strong relationship with Iran, although they have condemned the US action, in substantive terms, I doubt if any of them will give major material support to Iran because they have their own equation with the US in mind. Russia would rather want concessions from US in the context of Ukraine rather than get involved in the Iran situation. Similarly, China would want good trade agreement with the US, less technology restrictions, less weapon supplies by US to Taiwan, rather than again get involved substantively in the Iran situation, beyond, of course, vocalizing condemnation. So it's a complex situation that's playing out. So I would feel ultimately US ability
politics will decide what President
Trump
would do. Okay, Ambassador, let's come to what happens in Iran in terms of transition to the new leadership. How could the Iranian politics play out in the coming days?
So it's very difficult to state from here because in any case, Iranian politics has not been fully transparent. But as I mentioned, they have a process of electing a new leader. Soon enough, the Assembly of Experts will meet and they will elect a new supreme leader. And then the power structure will start consolidating around that. So we have to wait for that step to come out.
But there are some, names doing rounds. One could be the son of Ayatollah Khamenei. There is a name of his grandson doing rounds. Then the present cleric who has come as a jurist to the council, his name is there. Though earlier Larijani's name was also being floated, but because he's not an Ayatollah, so he cannot go in for being a supreme leader, though he'll remain a powerful figure in their power structure. If you could possibly talk a bit about that.
So it's all speculation,
okay.
And it's better not to. But it obviously, as you indicated, the supreme leader has to be also the supreme religious leader and political leader. So it has to be an Ayatollah And then, of course, or whoever, the structures, the Assembly of Experts particularly, that's the mechanism. But the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, they'll have a say in what emerges, the Guardians Council from behind the scene. So all that will play a role.
Given the fact that the Ayatollah was 86-year-old, there were some reports that he was looking at a succession plan, working on a succession plan for a bit. So could there also be something already there, but now, of course, the situation has changed because he's dead?
So sure, again, all this is again matter of speculation.
Okay.
But to say that, obviously, people around him would have been discussing that. There would have been ideas, thoughts. They would have thought of something when the exchanges with Israel took place last year. That because Israel had indicated that they were targeting Ayatollah Khamenei even at that time.
Right.
And they would have anticipated that something like this may again be attempted by the US and Israel. And so I'm sure, discussions and thought processes must have been on.
We'll leave it there, Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh. Though the situation is evolving, it is clearly on the escalatory ladder right now. Coming days, we'll have to watch how it develops. Many thanks, Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh, for taking our time and sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you.